Alright, and welcome to another episode of Flat Water. I'm your host, D. Marvel, reminding you once again that bodies of water, everybody say it with me now, do not curve. I'm coming to you live from the Puget Sound, Ruston Way, Washington, downtown Tacoma. Now, I got a question as soon as I woke up this morning, and the question was, in correspondence to the last video where I spoke about why I believe we're under a dome, or I said that I believe we're under a dome, and someone asked me why I believe we're under a dome. So I'm just going to go through, let's say 4 things to explain why I've come to the conclusion that we're under a dome. You see, the way that I come to a conclusion, typically I need multiple pieces of evidence before I come to a conclusion. I'm going to need, more than one thing to convince me. I think that's the rational approach to forming a conclusion in anything. So I'm not just the kooky conspiracy theorist who's just going to, see one thing and say, that's what it is, man. That's not me. That's not what I do. So I need multiple things. So from my experiences, I'll just give you the 4 things that give me the impression that we are, in fact, under a dome. So number 1, let's talk about the firmament. Alright, so firmament. Let's look at what this is. Now, turn in your Bibles with me to Genesis 1 and verse 6. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the water, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So there's water, and now inside that water let's think of like a bubble, some sort of a line of division. There's some barrier on the inside. So there's water above here, then there's the barrier on the inside. Let's think of that as the dome. And then there's water beneath. Okay, so let's stick with that. You think about the water, and you got your dome inside it. And the way that I conclude that is just, if you've seen some of these movies or cartoons growing up where they would take you underseas to like Atlantis, like if you watched Justice Leagues or whatever. They always take you to some underground city to go visit Aquaman, and at that city, it's always like a bubble in the water. So I want you to think of the firmament, something like that. So that's number 1. The biblical evidence for the firmament makes sense to me, and I'll get to another reason why in a minute. So number 2 is the fact that sound, vibrations, frequencies, currents, that it has an effect on matter. And there's speculation that the interpretation in the Bible where it says, and God said, that's a reference to creation through sound and frequency. Because, one of the pieces of evidence that I've seen to support this is the fact that there are different videos. There's one, can't remember the name of it, but what the people did, they took sand and they put it on the surface, on a little black surface. And what they did, they had a machine where they would adjust the pitch. And while they're adjusting the pitch, the sand would take different shapes. And as the frequencies were turned up higher and higher, the shapes took more detailed forms, more elaborate patterns emerged due to the raising of the frequency and the vibration there. So sound can create. So that goes back to and God said. That very well may be a reference to sound creating. So there's that. Also, I saw footage of a star in a jar, and what the star in a jar was that I remember, it was called sonoluminescence. And it was some people in a lab, and they were passing frequency through a flask of fluid. And within this flask of fluid, there became this little bead, and the bead it like glowed a really blue light, and because of this frequency, and it was described that some way or another the frequency caused the molecules inside this flask of fluid to slam together so fast, thousands of times a second, excuse me, that it kind of looked like a star. It resembled a star. And there are other people that have the Nikon P900 who have zoomed into stars in the sky, and they have put these stars next to what we know as lights in a pool or underwater. And the stars, when you zoom in on them, it looks exactly like it's light inside a pool. It's crazy to actually see these things. So these elaborate high definition photos we get from NASA, no, that's not what it is. I don't think it's explosions out there. I don't think that stars are suns. From what I can tell, from what I've seen, I conclude that stars out there are, for the most part, like the star in the jar. Like there's a frequency creating that light out in the firmament. So there's that. Another reason why I conclude that we're under a dome. Number 3, sunlight. If you've seen pictures of the beach, you see these beautiful coasts where the sun's over the beach, and then the sky's blue, the water's blue. The sun has the ability to turn water or give water the appearance of being blue, if I understand correctly. And I think you understand that too. So when you look up at the sky, it kind of makes sense, because since water does turn blue seemingly next to sunlight, that's just kind of simple. You can see what's going on back here. So there's that. And it's simple, but I'm a simple guy, so deal with it. So blue water, blue sky. You know what I mean? It's the same tone, same kind of texture. Come on, blue water. What do you think that is? And every time we see the sun out in space, it's always pitch black. It's a simple question. It probably wouldn't even sound right to ask this to someone, but why isn't space blue? If the sun's way out there, 93 million miles away, why is space always pitch black when we get these pictures of the sun from NASA? Just wondering. Just another one of those questions to ask somebody. Okay, so number 4, why I conclude that we're under a dome. Rockets. I've seen a lot of footage of rockets. Rockets are a dead giveaway in this thing, because the ways that rockets interact. You see, if you ever watch, you can go back on YouTube. I may put up a video here of rocket launches. Whenever NASA launches a rocket, in the beginning, the rocket will go straight up. It'll go straight up for a little bit, but after a while, it'll tilt off and it'll go horizontal after a while. And it looks as if the rockets are going horizontal. They're going out to sea. They'll just get up and just not go into space per se, because if I understand correctly, the quickest way to get to space from Earth is by going straight up. I'm just saying. So there's that. So these NASA rockets, they always end up going straight up, and then they go horizontal off into the horizon to a point to where you can't even see them anymore. Where they go, I don't know. We'd have to have some former astronauts or something. But there's that. Also, I've seen video of rocket launches that seem to get up to the ceiling or the dome, and it kind of scrapes. It kind of looks like it was scraping against the top of the dome, and it looked like it got to a point to where it just couldn't go anymore if you take a look at it. So that seems suspicious to me. It honestly looked like the rocket hit a physical barrier and couldn't go any further, and just like exploded. So there's that. The final thing about rockets is a couple years ago there was a project. There was like a private company. They commissioned their own rocket, and they launched this rocket from Arizona. It was the I want to say it's the Go Fast 2014. I could be wrong, but that rocket, that was the fastest amateur rocket built, and they shot that rocket straight up, and they attached cameras to that rocket. And what happened was that rocket went straight up, just like you would expect NASA rockets to do. And what happened, the rocket just goes, zoom, 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 and after a while, it just stops. The rocket just stops, as if it hit something solid, but the rocket it wasn't damaged, it wasn't harmed. You know, obviously it wasn't, because it just kept filming. And if you go back and look at that, I'll try to post a link in the description, or try to remember to post a link in the description for that video. That rocket goes straight up, slams into something, but is not damaged, and then it slows down and just spins. It spins, and if you listen to it, it actually sounds like what you hear if you're underwater. You can kind of hear the audible sounds. If you've ever been swimming, you go underwater, you can't hear clearly. That's what that rocket picked up. That's what those cameras picked up from that rocket. And I surmise, I would go so far as to conclude that the rocket may have actually slammed into the waters above, kept spinning slowly to a point to where it came back down, and then fell back down at free fall speed once it was released from those waters. But that's for you to decide. I'm just giving you my opinion on how I've concluded that we are in fact under a dome. So those are my things. From Genesis, how sound creates matter, the sonoluminescent lights, the blue sky, how the sun interacts with water on Earth to make it look blue, and how it may very well be interacting with the waters above, because, you know, you've been asking since you were a child, why is the sky blue? So there's that, and then the interaction with rockets. So that's all I have for this video. Hope that answered, you know, your question as far as why I believe that. You can come to your own conclusions, continue doing your own research. We're all out here learning and growing, continuing to you know, figure these things out, or attempt to get these things figured out. But the fact of the matter always remains, bodies of water don't curve, therefore the earth is flat. Flat water, flat earth. Simple as that. Everything else is just details. So that's the end of that one. Hey, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Hit the bell if you want notifications for when I post a video, so you'll be one of the first to get them. Link up with me and the crew over at Flat Earth No Tropes. That's about it. Take care. Thanks for tuning in.